August 15th, 2023.
Reflections on the weather.
The National Weather Service has issued a flood advisory.
Last summer, in United Arab Emirates, the National Weather Service issued a flood warning. The Weather Bureau of United Arab Emirates. Now, why did they issue a flood warning in the middle of the summer? It doesn't rain in the middle of the summer. But they sent up electric drones into the sky so they knew it was going to rain. And the reason why they did that is because it's so hot over there. It's 115 degrees with high humidity that people were dying, and people are always dying. But by making it rain, it cools things off. It cools things off. And what's very unique in how the United Arab Emirates does this is that they don't use any chemicals. This is all through electricity. When Russia does it, they use chemicals. When China does it, they use chemicals. But when United Arab Emirates does it, and they do it, they're saving lives, and they're doing it through electricity. So I think in that type of a situation, not only are you allowed to do it, I think you're mechuyev to do it. I think you're obligated to do it because you're saving lives. I would think, based upon things that, let's say, like Ramosha Feinstein said in regards to using growth hormone for children, he said that if the purpose of it is to make a person normal, you're taking like a super short person and you're making them normal, then you're allowed to use it. If the purpose of it is to turn you into Superman, then you're not allowed to use it. That's what he said. I saw that in leadership. So it's very possible that we would say the same thing over here. If the purpose of using the drone is to make it more comfortable, you wouldn't be allowed to use it.
Okay, now we can look.
But if the purpose is to save lives, then not only would there be a mitzvah to use it, not only would there be a heter to use it, you would be mechuyev to use it. So it would be an actual mitzvah. Perhaps. Now, what do we do with the Gemara in the Masechta Tanis that says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has only given the key to rain? HaKadosh Baruch Hu has never given the key to rain. That's not our issue. If we have a technological way, through technology, we have a way to create rain in a situation where people are dying because of the heat, or they're dying because of a drought, so then one would think, based upon what we know our approach is when it comes to medicine and other things, one would think that it would be allowed. And here's the other thing. We know the Torah actually does not tell us that we have any permission to go to a doctor. We have, according to the psukim in the Torah, a doctor has permission to heal. He doesn't have to. The doctor can come to a sick person and heal. But for a sick person to go to a doctor, the psukim don't allow that. But we are holding on such a low level of bitachon that not only does the doctor have permission, we have permission. Not only do we have permission, we're mechuyev, we're obligated to go to a doctor. That's the perspective that Yiddishkeit has. So now let's take this to the next level over here. Either we're going up a level or we're going down a level. We have the IPCC, the International Panel of Climate Change. They're the source of the science behind it. They tell us that if the global temperature rises above 1.5 degrees Celsius from what it was in the pre-industrial years, which they define as the 1800s, then the world is headed for a tipping point, irreversible damage. And the whole goal is to make sure that the world does not rise above 1.5 degrees Celsius. If the world rises above 2 degrees Celsius, there's a lot more certainty in regards to the damage that could be done. So let's go ahead and just discuss exactly what the climate change, which I believe the terminology has been updated again. The original terminology probably is the most accurate way to define it, but in regards to the emotional impact that it has on people, so the terminology was changed. Global warming doesn't have the same impact on people as the words climate change, and by now it's probably climate crisis, something like that. But really, the real term is global warming. The issue is calling it global warming. causes a lot of miscommunication. Because this increase in global temperatures could actually increase Arctic outbreaks. So it doesn't necessarily mean the place where you live is going to be warmer. And to clarify that confusion, the terminology was changed. But the most accurate way to describe the situation would be global warming. So what exactly is global warming? Global warming is referring to not when things warm in a natural cycle, which means global warming refers to certain activities that are being done by man, which science tells us, mainstream science tells us, that these activities are causing the Earth to rise in temperature, and this rise in temperature is dangerous for man. They also might focus on the fact that it's dangerous for other species as well. It is causing extinction of other species, but the Torah is very much focused on man. And there's a danger to man. Now, why is there a danger? So the truth of the matter is, the main danger is due to rising sea level. That's the main issue here. The main issue is that the glaciers are melting and the sea levels are rising, and this is gonna cause an enormous issue for the coastal cities, which really the majority of the population is on the coastal cities. We already have a city like New Orleans, Louisiana, which it seems like there's a constant flood advisory over there. I think the city is already under sea level. Or Miami, Miami's sinking. That's another issue. I'm not quite sure why Miami's sinking. But the sea levels are rising, and that's going to cause flooding and life-threatening flooding. There's a lot of other things that you're going to hear about as well, which is the intensification of storms, especially hurricanes. You'll also hear about the impact that global warming has on the jet stream, how it can cause a more wavy jet stream. I don't think that's clear-cut, but let's say it is. Let's say that it does cause a more wavy jet stream, and wavy jet stream produces storms. So according to that line of thinking, it's not only that global warming would increase the intensification of storms, increase the moisture also available in the storms, meaning it intensifies the storm system, plus it brings more moisture into the storm system, but it also could be responsible for producing the storm in the first place. That's if you take the most extreme perspective on this, but not everybody agrees to that. I think everyone would agree to warmer temperatures would intensify storms that are already here. But it's really very, very complex because they say it also increases sandstorms, and the sand's effect in the upper atmosphere could actually produce rain, which would actually decrease hurricanes. So it's a very complex issue. But let's go ahead and say that global warming from activities that man is doing is a danger to the lives of man. Now, which activities are this? There's many activities, but the main one is burning fossil fuel. That's the main activity. And there's several different greenhouse gases. Methane, I think, stays in the... One of them stays... I think the weaker one, carbon dioxide, stays in the environment the longest, but methane is the strongest. Methane, that one's much, much stronger than any of the other greenhouse gases. And it stays in the... But we're going to get to that. It stays in the environment for much, much shorter. And we have other things around the world which cause global cooling, but they're very, very short term. You have global cooling, but that's like the ashes from volcanoes. However, even with various things like aerosols can cause global cooling, and ozone is an aerosol that can cause cooling. But at the end of the day, the greenhouse gases are being produced at a much, much higher level than any of these other things. So at the end of the day, man's activity is causing global warming. There's also it's even outdoing carbon sinks. Carbon sinks are things that absorb the greenhouse gases. Ocean absorbs it. Soil absorbs it. Trees, things like that. But the question is, what would the Torah perspective be on greenhouse gases and global warming? So Toby has a kasha over here. His question is, what are greenhouse gases? So, if you remember, we once went to Cincinnati, and we went into this butterfly house, and it was just hot in this butterfly house. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So why was it so hot in the butterfly house? And also, why is it so hot when you walk into your car after it's been parked in a parking lot for many hours? Why is it so hot in there? So,
Because of the greenhouse gas?
no. It's because what happens is the sun shines through the window and it heats everything up. But unlike the outside where the air escapes, in the car it doesn't escape. It just keeps getting hotter and hotter. So a greenhouse is a house that's green. What does that mean? There's a lot of greenery in the house. There's a lot of plants in the house. A lot of times, if
Like
people...
South Lois is.
Right. So if a lot of times, let's say someone's living up north over here in Chicago, and winter's coming. So what are you going to do with all your plants? So you could either make heat, or you can do is make what's called like a greenhouse, just a glass house, and put the plants in there, and then the sun shines into this glass house, it heats it up, and it doesn't get cold. It just gets warmer and warmer. So that's what a greenhouse is. The green comes from the plants. This is a house that people make for plants in the wintertime. Right, sir? That's where it comes from? It's the greenhouse. That's what a greenhouse is. So it's things that they trap in the house for plants, which is made out of glass, which lets the sun in. It could be plastic too. It traps in the heat. So scientists say that there are certain gases in the environment that do the exact same thing. A certain gas that also traps in the heat. For example, water vapor. That's probably the best example, since we can all relate to water vapor. A cloud is water vapor. So at night, if it's cloudy out, at night, the temperature is not going to drop as much as when it's clear. Now, so during the day, the temperature rises in the summertime. During the day, when it's clear, the sun is mamish a powerhouse. It really heats things up. And during the day, when it's cloudy, the sun doesn't heat things up as much. But at night, it's just the opposite. If you have clouds, that prevents the temperature from dropping. So, for example, this is why if you go to a desert, there are certain deserts that actually get cold at night and are actually brutally hot during the day. There's some places in Africa. I remember it was over here was in the winter, February of 2021. The temperatures in certain areas were in.
When this family was born.
What? Everyone was born. We all had COVID. It was in the mid-40s, except for you. It was in the mid-40s at night, and it was 113 during the day. That was what the forecast was. Now, the tremendous Mila, the advantage of living in a place like that is that there's no bugs, because all the bugs die at night. So, and then they probably die during the day too, because it's so hot. They die. So Tom Skilling said that if there's 3 nights in a row of temperatures in the low 50s, all the mosquitoes die. So over there, every night is in the mid-40s. Sometimes it's in the mid-50s, but at that period of time, it's in the mid-40s.
Outside down.
There's also a city called I think it's Woolsdrift, South Africa, something like that, where there's a 50-degree difference between night and day. Here in the United States, we also have cities which have a 40-degree difference between night and day, and actually Stanley, Idaho, can also get a 50-degree difference between night and day. There are times you can look at Stanley, Idaho, you'll see overnight lows in the mid-30s and highs are in the mid-80s. Rio Grande Village, Texas, there's a 40-degree difference between night and day. But it's, let's say, 110 during the day and 70 in the 70s at night. So the reason for that is because the skies are clear and there's no water vapor. So Dovi, you got that? Why is there no water vapor? Because there's no ocean there. There's no ocean there. As opposed to Ein Gedi in Eretz Yisrael, there's the Dead Sea. So there is water vapor over there. So even though it also gets cooler there, but it doesn't. The Dead Sea.
Everything dies and we just.
In Yerushalayim, there's a 30-degree difference. There's not much water vapor in Yerushalayim. The dew points are in the 50s because Yerushalayim has a high elevation, and the water vapor is just squeezed out by the time it gets there. There's also something called mixing, actually, where the upper atmosphere mixes down. So if you have a higher elevation, it seems like, especially looking at Yerushalayim, there's less humidity. There really is no humidity with the heat. And I don't know what the actual high was this past Shabbos, but the European computer model was forecasting 102 Shabbos, 106 Sunday. I don't know what actually happened. The AccuWeather said 99. Whereas in Tel Aviv, the high was only forecast to be 90. Now, why? Tel Aviv is always hotter than Yerushalayim, because Tel Aviv is by the Mediterranean Sea. So what happens is during the day the temperatures are not as high, but at night the temperatures are not that low either. Miami Beach, this time of the year, there's maybe a 10 or 15 degree difference between night and day. And that's about it. Because of the water vapor. So water vapor is a greenhouse gas and it traps in the heat. It traps in the heat. It also happens.
And the heat can't come out. It's like when you trap an animal, it's trapped.
Right, not only that, there are times at night, if the night starts off clear and then it's cloudy, there are times where temperatures will actually start rising after midnight at night. In fact, even if it's cloudy the whole night, maybe this is even more true. When it's foggy, thick fog, the temperature can stay the same all day. It doesn't. There's a record. I think there's a certain city, I don't remember where, but the temperature stayed the same for 3 days in a row. I think that's the record. We could always look it up again. But that's very rare to stay the same. But these cities which are surrounded by ocean, like what's that place that Muffy was at? Muffy? Come on.
Oh, I don't remember the name of it.
Guam? Not Guam.
No.
Samoa. Samoa, so every day the high is 89, every night the low 78. So in the winter maybe it's 82. So that's a greenhouse gas. Now if you notice with the greenhouse gas, that type of greenhouse gas, the water vapor, so is it getting warmer? Is it getting cooler? Well, it's hard. You have to take the average temperature because during the day, the clouds are making it, even without the clouds, the sun is not as efficient at heating up air with high humidity. It doesn't heat it up the same way. So an argument could be made to say that maybe those types of greenhouse gases is not increasing the temperature because granted the temperatures are going up at night, but during the day, temperatures are not going up to the same way they are like in Phoenix, Arizona. So now, why wouldn't that be true by the other greenhouse gases? I don't know. Well, the other greenhouse gases don't produce clouds. So that's one reason perhaps why not be true. So water vapor is one greenhouse gas. Carbon dioxide is another. What is it? Methane? Methane? No. That's the strongest greenhouse gas. All right, so now the whole thing is that when you look at the Torah, so the Torah says that if you listen to Hashem and you follow the Torah, we say it in Shema every single day, but it's not just in Shema, it's throughout Sefer Devarim. The Torah promises us that if we're keeping the Torah, It will rain in the proper time. Basically, the climate will cooperate 100%. And we know everything's from Hashem. So an argument could be made to say that the greenhouse gas is just an illusion, but it's something to get distracted with. But really, it's dependent on a ruchniistic amaisim. However, if you go ahead and say that, there's inconsistency. Because when it comes to illness, the Torah also says, if the Klal Yisrael is keeping the Torah, I will remove all illness from you. Nobody will get sick, and Hashem will bring a refuah to everybody. That's what the Torah says. But at the same time, Lamaisa, it's not really realistic, especially now. And Lamaisa, when we get sick, we go to the doctor and we get a medicine. We're supposed to do that. So, even if you say,
everyone for a certain reason made scientists so for a certain reason.
It's right.
They made doctors. People really the doctor is real Hashem, but he just wants to make you feel that you're going to someplace and not sitting at home doing nothing, just trying to get better from Hashem.
But who wants to make you feel that way? Well, Hashem might want to give you the good feeling of that you know you're doing something about your issue. Instead of in the midbar, it was different. Hashem wanted to show everybody that He runs the world. So we didn't have to do a thing. But
nowadays, Hashem just wants to make us feel that we're doing something.
Right, Rabbi Yochanan Zweig says that one of the purposes of Teva to give us a feeling of accomplishment sometimes. In regards to going to a doctor, the truth is it could very well be if you were holding on a high enough level of bitachon. When it comes to that, we really maybe shouldn't. But nowadays, I guess you could say that this is an indicator of how low bitachon we have. That everyone's expected to go to a doctor. Everyone's mechuyev to go to a doctor. So you could say the same thing here. You could say, granted, if we're all keeping the Torah. So yeah, the climate's going to cooperate 100%. And if the climate's not cooperating, granted, we should do tshuva or a cheshbon nefesh. But at the same time, if someone out there says the reason why these life-threatening things are happening is because someone's producing this gas, and the person could stop producing the gas, so the person should stop producing the gas. Okay. Now, so you could say that people should stop burning fossil fuels. However, it's not so simple, because here we're speaking about the entire world. We're not speaking about just one person. And for some people, fossil fuel might be their only source of fuel. So it's very complicated over here, and I really have no idea exactly what is expected from us. But the point over here is that it's not a stira. I don't think it's a stira to say that we should do something about the climate. That's not only is that not a stira to the Torah, that's consistent with everything else we're taught about the Torah. That's if there's something we could do about it. It's the same thing with medicine. Medicine has side effects. If the side effects are so brutal that it's worse than the actual sickness, then it doesn't make any sense to take the medicine. Because, yeah, the medicine will make your sickness better, but the medicine itself makes you feel worse than the sickness. So that's the whole thing over here. So in America, we might have one. It might not have that big of an effect. It might not. It might just be, okay, change over to electric cars. And besides, if we change over to electric cars, Chilul Shabbat, according to most Shitas, driving a car will only be an Isser D'Rabbanan on Shabbos. I think there is a das yachid that holds electricity is a doraisa. Well, I think the Chazon Ish holds it's boine. But some say that the electricity isn't. So there could be a mila out that. You have.
Why is it muksa if it runs on gas?
So on gas, I believe there's a fire, right? So isn't there a fire burning the gas in a car? Yeah, I've never seen the fire, but apparently there is.
There's smoke that comes out of it. And also you have to just know not to press any buttons.
So our conclusion over here is that this whole idea of us doing things which damage the climate and therefore undoing those things, stop ourselves from doing it, is something that the Torah would require, just like taking medicine. And also, there's a strong argument to say in regards to the drones, in regards to the electric drones, there's a strong argument to say, it almost seems like this is push-up shot, but I'm going to say the argument now to do this in a moment, that if you're in a life-threatening heat wave, such as the United Arab Emirates, and by sending a drone, it's going to cool things off. Not really. It barely cools things off because it also increases the humidity, which increases the... but even with that, the heat index does end up getting a little bit lower. It's still life-threatening even after they do that, but it's better. Or perhaps in the situation of a drought. So then one would be obligated to do that. Now, the problem with that, again, is the side effects. Last summer, I believe that 2 summers ago, when they sent the drones up, it caused an enormous amount of flooding, actually. And I don't know, flooding could actually kill people. So I don't know what happened with that. Now, what about in regards to shooting chemicals up into the sky?
That's very dangerous.
So that sounds too dangerous. Right? It sounds like they could shoot salt up into the stratosphere or troposphere or aerosols, and that could produce cooling. But I doubt we really know what the long-term effects of that is.
What if, like, they send out drones? It's like a boiling hot day, and they send out drones, and it shoots out fans.
So that would be ideal, but actually that wouldn't, because believe it or not, the wind only cools things off when the temperature is under 95 degrees. When the temperature is over 95 degrees, it's like a furnace blowing in your face. It actually makes things hotter. Now here in Chicago, we rarely get to feel a temperature higher than 95. I don't know what happens at 95. If there's humidity, then the temperature has to be a little bit hotter than 95 before this effect happens. But we don't really get to experience that here in Chicago too much at all. But the places where that really makes a difference, they say, is the motorcycle races in Kansas City. Not Kansas City, in parts of Kansas sometimes. There's some area there where they do motorcycle racing. And when you're on a motorcycle, there's tremendous wind. So if it's higher than 95, that's very, very dangerous. Okay, those are the thoughts for this evening. And we're holding right now 2 days before Rosh Chodesh Elul. Wednesday night is Rosh Chodesh Elul. Thursday night is the first day of Elul. We'll start to blow the shofar. We'll start to blow the shofar Friday morning.
I can start blowing the shofar?
Yeah, you could start blowing the shofar.
The following is a 1-minute trailer. Following is a winter storm watch in effect from the Omaha, Nebraska National Weather Service. Several additional feet of snow is expected by Monday morning. Yes! People were reporting frost quakes. These are earthquake-like tremors.
We have a powerhouse typhoon which has developed off in the Pacific Ocean.
A big shockaroo to many of you. We have parts of the world that are so hot right now. Temperatures are expected to go into the low 130s. Recorded temperatures during heat bursts have reached well above 104 degrees. It's a rare atmospheric phenomenon. We're going from one extreme to the next extreme. Feet of snow are falling in Japan.
Oh my gosh.
Just Google weather with enthusiasm and they're all gonna come up.
For thunder and for lightning and the rainbow in the sky. For mountains and for oceans or a river running by.
It's Hanukkah, and Hanukkah is the celebration of Torah Sheba'al Peh, and it is snowing. And part of the Torah Sheba'al Peh over here is that there's a Rebbe in there, Yisrael, Rav Kalman Weinreb, who has a Sheleg Shmuz. The Pri Megadim, he says that on years when the first day of Shvat, if the first day of that month falls out on a Wednesday, there's going to be a lot of snow.
We need to change.
About climate change, it's important for us to know the source for everything is our actions.
We can no longer look away from the obvious fact that we also need to change our behavior.